Hi, my name's Paul Gavins. I'm a sculptor and I live in my wife's basement. I did build a Mechagodzilla suit a few years ago. It was the 1974 Mechagodzilla, and I had a really good time building it, but it was quite difficult. It was an experiment from the beginning. I built it in about 30 hours a week in 3 months overall, and I didn't really have the opportunity of time to videotape much of it and document anything. Since then, people have said, how did you do this or how did you do that? And I thought, well, I want to do another suit. Next time I do it, I'll videotape it, and people can get an inside look at how that's done, and also I can look back on it and learn from it too. So I would encourage you, no matter what you're doing, however, to build a suit if the thought moves you, because it's really about the fun. It's not about having the best suit or whatever. It's about being out there in front of people who all love kaiju, and you're wearing the suit, and inside the suit, in your mind, you are that kaiju, and people are cheering for you, and a lot of them are just thinking, geez, maybe next year I'll build a suit. So it's more about experimenting and having fun than having some perfect finished result. One of the things that sort of came along unexpectedly for me was the first time I wore this suit, I had the opportunity to meet Haru Nakajima, and my earliest memory of him was when I was about 9 years old in a 7-Eleven, crouching by the newsstand and flipping through a copy of 114 Famous Monsters of Filmland. And the clerk, of course, looking over his shoulder going, "Hey, kitty, you're going to buy that?" But the thing that most I remember about it is that there was a picture on the inside cover of him standing in the lower half of the Godzilla suit, and the caption was, "Why is this man smiling?" I thought, well, of course he's smiling because he gets to wear a Godzilla suit and step on miniature cities. And that's what it's about. It's about fun. So about 30 years later, I find myself standing inside a Mechagodzilla suit with that man standing in front of me, holding my claws and trying to teach me how to walk and roar like a monster. And I mean, that could not have been a more magical moment. I think that's something that is unique and something I'll never forget. So if people look at suit building as really the experience rather than the actual suit, and all the things that can bring to you in terms of enjoyment, I think you'll have a much better experience of it, and you'll feel a lot more free about approaching it. So please watch this and see what works, see what does not work. As you do things, you'll find things that work for you and don't work for you, and you learn from them, and you just have a good time doing it. So thanks for your time. I hope you enjoy this. Everything pretty much started with this Baltan suit. This suit was largely a pair of tights and a head. Throw in some claws that I made, and you had pretty much a suit. And that's kind of why I started on this. I've always liked the Baltans, and I was a little bit hesitant to get into too huge a project the first time. So I went ahead and I tried this. I tried putting a bunch of different materials together, and this is what I came up with. And I chose brown instead of the blue because you've seen a lot of different colors of Baltans throughout all the Ultra series. So that kind of shows you the latitude that you have. Even though some people said, a brown Baltan, the thing is, if you really look back through the videos, they've been all kinds of colors. They've been gray, they've been blue, they've been black, they've been, with quite a lot of variety. So really, there is no hard, fast rule that says it must always be, whatever, unless, of course, you're trying to make it that way. And, that's setting yourself up for a lot of work. But there's nothing wrong with that either. But for a first try, I went with this, and I had a good time with it. Such a good time that I decided to go ahead and make another more ambitious suit, the 74 Mechagodzilla. Begin with a note from my wife. I hope she sees this. I hope she's entertained when she does. Starting out using the Bondi as a reference, though, you have to begin with some scans or some kind of contour diagram. So I start out with digital photos, which I then printed on my computer in a front, side, rear, and a bottom and the feet view, because these details are also important. A lot of times I start sketching ideas as to how I'm going to have things connected on the suit already onto the drawings. But the really large project at this stage was the full-scale drawing. The full-scale drawing is about 7 feet tall, and it fits over a rather portly silhouette of myself. This contains a lot less detail than the MG74 did, but then I realized there are some things that were important and some things that were not. So I basically go in with my silhouette, and then I over project the a transparency drawn from one of these, specifically this one. And I basically magnify it so that I fit within the measurements of the suit. Then I begin by figuring out primary bulkheads, which I've drawn in red here. I divide things up so that I can figure out exactly what boxes will make up the structure of the suit. Ultimately, I will calculate out the measurements of this as well as the curvatures that I need. I figure out all the spines and their dimensions, and I start by counting them by number. But first, I set up a time schedule. And August is almost done. We've got pretty much what we need to do for August done. And since it's only the 15th, I'm happy about that. Some more little side sketches. And I set up a tentative schedule for September, October, November, and December. It's a fairly ambitious schedule, but it means if I follow this, which I probably won't, I can be done probably by January or February, which is a heck of a lead on G-Fest in July. I then go down and I begin a list of supplies. This will be updated continuously with things crossed off as I obtain them. And measurements. Moving back up to the November schedule, I started, as an example here, the fins are counted out. There's 1 on the head, 3 on the neck, and they're all sort of coded. In the posterior thorax, and the pelvis, and the tail. But they're coded so I know how many to do, of what size, and whether they're in the middle or if they're the 2 lateral ones. And hopefully I can document this a little bit better than I did the other one. It's just a hoot to sit back and watch it, and for me it's actually very educational. So I'll be happy to share this with anyone who's interested in seeing it if and when this project is ever completed. Hi-ho! Gino the fraud here. You're not laughing. Well, anyway, my name is Gino. You may recognize me from such feature films as Gino. I would like to point out, this film is made by amateurs. And I know about that. It's also about making a fake Godzilla, which I also know about. Anyway, I'm going to stop by once in a while and offer commentary and my expertise advice on making fake Godzillas. So, I'm going to leave now, vanish like the flash in the pan I am. Bye-bye. Let's take a moment and talk first about materials. First, for this particular project, we have lots of liquid nails. And we have little elbows for the PVC piping, some bowls to mix things up in, PVC adhesive, fiberglass resin, hot glue sticks, the long industrial strength kind. And those are the high temp ones, not the low temp ones. Elmer's spray adhesive, any kind of spray adhesive will do. Mini glue guns for smaller work. Lots of drywall screws in various lengths. Spray paints, these all happen to be silver. Tubing. Straps that will form the shoulder straps. Rolls of foam. This is expanding foam insulation to fill in gaps and stick things together. More resin. Masking tape. This is acrylic sealer. The caulking gun. Some styrofoam bits. These are bucks, or solid forms over which molds are made of claws. This is mold building latex. There's actually 2 cans of it here. Now here we have molds. Mold builder for a flexible mold. This is plaster of Paris mold here with the little latex mold insert that I've created. This is what was coated on out of the can over the buck forms that I showed you. And there's one for each size of claw. Lots of latex gloves to protect your hands from all sorts of things. More rubber tubing, and this is a hot wire. The hot wire has the transformer unit with the dimmer switch on so you can adjust the current. It's got a plug so you can stick it in a wall. And then this is the wand. It's a Y-shaped affair. I've got it braced so it holds it apart, and the wire connects at each end of this. And you just slice it through foam when it's hot, like a cheese slicer. Once again, you have to have reference materials at hand. Some basic power tools are nice to have, but not necessary all the time. Drill presses. We've got some of the raw materials here. Here's some of the pink foam in a few sizes, and cleared out some more space. The Mecha Godzillas are prepared. I think it's time to get cracking. Measurements are taken at the foot. A lot of this is largely freeform and it's not nearly as precise as it might seem. But we're going to go with a rough measurement and begin. First we'll start by cutting out the foam here. We'll be using some of the thicker stock to make the sole and bond the shoe on, and then work on it for walkability before we do any of the cosmetics. Here's a couple of frames for the feet. These are going to form the rudimentary supports system for the rest of the body. This will allow loads to be transmitted internally rather than right on the shell itself, and allow me to have some joints that truly function as joints. So it's kind of a new thing. Kind of excited. And it's just PVC pipe. And I'm always compared for reference with the master drawing. Okay, fast forward a few days, and here we have the beginnings of a more recognizable foot, including the dew claw. Actually, it's not a dew claw. Panels are screwed in place. There's a bevel on the foot edge now. And the shoe, which is where the foot rests, obviously, is permanently mounted with liquid nails. This blue mark here is going to be where the ankle joint is made, because it corresponds approximately with my ankle joint. Underneath the foot, it's pretty plain. Well, it's a pretty dirty day in the studio today. Worked a little bit more there, but this is the pelvis, or this will be the pelvis, and the hip girdle will be oriented like this. Here's where the tail attaches. So that's approximately where we are now. After that's done, the tail can have all the segments spaced out on it, and it can be attached so that we'll have an idea for the final dimensions and we can proportion that correctly. Now, having talked about the thighs, these are forms. These are forms so that I was able to build the rest of it in context, but these are not the finished pieces. However, I will end up cannibalizing this section here, this reinforced pipe section, and this lower section here, which will go inside the finished thigh that I build around the other form I used for the thigh construction. Not much else has happened here.
Whoa!
These are half of a bottle, which will fit here to make this portion. And the spats have yet to be completed. There's a point in every project where you realize just what you've gotten yourself into. I think the time is now. And here we have William kind of playing around here. This is a big pretzel jar, and it's full of stuff right now. But it's pretty big, and this is going to be the form over which I bend the upper thighs. Well, it's upper, lower. It's the thighs of Mechagodzilla. And it'll be bent foam. Warm it up slightly and bend it, and it'll be kind of like barrels, and then you'll cut away the basic shape after that. Hi. Underneath this, we have the basic chest plate, and this is a design that I'm going to trace onto this piece, which is a laminated piece to make it thick enough. That's going to go right there. And I'm going to cut away that chest piece in that fashion so that it matches the pattern that I've got drawn onto this below. And they're the air intake ducts, which are actually, I'm thinking about making functional because it gets hot inside suits. And this is basically a box. This raised portion here is going to be a form around which I'll be able to bend the first section of the neck. There are 3 sections in all. One of them is actually part of the upper torso.
Dad, don't forget about
And then here is the side. This is going to be an armhole, but because it's going to be cut in at an angle, I have to have some material on the inside. So there is an additional piece glued in here. And this will close up the remaining spot between the side of my chest and the actual suit, so it'll be minimal jostling around inside. And there's the hole in front. This is the hole where the body goes, and there's a spinal piece that goes through here, and it curves and comes up through here in the back. So, and once again, foam will be bent around this curve here, and then the dorsal plates will stick out in this manner. The other end of that top pipe that I've got, the additional tail bar, is ending right here, about halfway back in the tail, so that with this anchored here, if it pulls, it'll pull the tops of the plates together, while this relationship stays constant. So that will allow the tail to have an upward curvature, which will kind of hold it in place. To the lower torso, we can see we have the addition of 2 straps. These are anchored to the foam, and these will provide support, much like suspenders during the time the suit is worn. There's also the tail rod is running straight front to back, and there's an additional rod that's going to be used for bending the tail up so it holds it suspended above the floor. Hopefully this will work. I'm not absolutely positive. It's sort of an experiment. In the meantime, I've added some rigidity by putting a single piece of foam laminate that runs all the way around to strengthen that up, and it's bonded with liquid nails to this piece and this piece.
Really?
Front to back rigidity is gained by putting these triangular pieces, which are liquid nailed and drywall screwed in place, and then this is the main bulkhead that the first tail section is going to jut off of.
He really made it.
Again, this additional piece is included here so that when I cut a bevel into it, there's material for the bevel to go into, and I've got a little bit of a base for the layer of plates that's going to go along the front here. The last of the molds has been completed for the claws, so now there's the small, medium size, and large claw size molds. For purposes of illustration, I've just put the molds of the claw and the inside claw, whatever you want to call them, into place just so I can assess the scale. And overall, it will be slightly smaller than you see here. And there's just one mold for each. You can see William squeezing them, and that means they're made of a soft latex, although they'll be cast in resin or some other such material. Each mold is like this. It's hollow inside, and it was basically latex built up over a form, and then it dried, and then I just peeled it right off. This is an important addition. This is a functional addition. It's not anything to do with aesthetics, really. But this line is where it's going to divide the foot into a front and a back half. And you see this roughly corresponds with the shoe where my instep would be, or the ball of my foot. This will allow me to flex the foot as I walk, and it will be a lot less difficult. I've actually tried the suit on the lower portion, and it was extremely difficult to walk because there's no mobility in the foot. This will form the back, and then the sides will have their access cut into them, and it will go from top down to the bottom, and it'll be fitting around a contour here so that it splits and the front comes out like a clamshell. You back into it and then close it down and secure it with straps from front to back on the bottom, and that holds it in place on you. But it allows you to get in and out with a lot more ease than on the last Mechagodzilla suit I built, where you had to pretty much contort yourself, and I ended up cutting out a piece of the panel from the armhole here all the way down to here, which left a big weak spot in what would otherwise be a very strong cylindrical form. So I'm doing something a little different with that this time too. Has been taking the chest and putting the chest plate on it. Now, some preliminary carving has been done here, as well as better definition of the contour lines that I'm going to have to carve in later. So some rough shapes have been made, also with guidelines for how this is going to be cut and where its ultimate dimension is going to be, with all this material being removed. I've also made the first piece of the neck. This is going to be where you look through, and I've enclosed the rear of the chest area. Again, this is not the outside that will be seen. This is the understructure. The cosmetic part is not load-bearing at all. It's purely cosmetic. So this is the skeleton. Also, for organization's sake, I started putting in some of the top plates of the tail, and this will allow me to have a better estimate for how I adjust things. Sort of on the way, I found that this will actually need to have a couple of risers built into it to hold the chest off of the pelvis, the pelvic girdle here.
I'm just a little bit tall for the suit as built. So these are just kind of the adjustments that need to be made during the construction process, and yeah, it keeps things interesting. The top piece actually moves by pulling it through into the pelvis, and by yanking it you can cause the tail to curl up, although I can't demonstrate this action right now because the bulkheads here are not yet firmly affixed to the lower tail rod. So that's where we stand right now, and here you can see the continuation of the what I call the spinal cord. This will allow continuity and have a nice curve that looks fairly natural built into the neck and hold things in constant alignment.
Okay, this is Mechagodzilla, my dad's best artist work.
Yeah, okay. Thank you, William.
You're welcome.
Now you can see the rings of the neck are going into place, and the last thing I will probably do is the head. But here we get an idea for the suit put together in a very basic sense. The chest plate at this point is not going to open as I had planned, and this joint here is somewhat compressed. No, they would not like to buy it. This is somewhat compressed here at this joint because there will be a space in there, right between there, and there will be a larger space in between the torso and the hips, which is currently held open by this block I've got shoved in there and one in the back. Now, here we have some preliminary drawings. The first major fin, this is the big fin, and that's in place now. Placement for the other fins that'll be on the sides of that. This is a cutout area that'll be cut out in the final model, and it goes around to the other side. The tail is coming together, and now the individual segments have been bonded in place, and so they're more correctly aligned, as you can see here.
What size is that?
So, and two tail plates for the top are going on. Just as a real quick detail here, here's the anchor again of the pulling rod that will allow the tail to lift up off the ground and not be dragged. And these are blocks that basically go between each of the individual tail pieces. They hold it rigidly in place and stop motion of the bulkheads. So this goes on all the way down. Eventually I have to go down to one block between each one, and these are supported only by liquid nails. This is the hub to which the little I gotta call it a finial will be attached. I started with the head in silhouette as we crown off the collar rings, which are not perfectly aligned yet, but to judge overall size and shape and proportion. I have to remind myself when I'm doing this that these are not the final true dimensions, and so the chest will be smaller than it actually is once all the excess is carved away. So the head really will not be as out of proportionally small as it seems, and there will be better alignment on the neck rings. Some of the structural facing has been filled in here, and the tail is much more rigidly locked to the body now. All the top panels are attached, and this is going to form the core of the tail spikes. Okay, now that work's starting on the front of the pelvis, I've had to suspend it from the straps from the ceiling to allow me to work all the way around down in here. I've also spent some time beveling this angle away, which if you go backwards you can see how this was very blocky in front right here. And now I've put the first panel on. I actually cut some away so that this piece is actually recessed. These are anchored only with Phillips screwdrivers or drywall Phillips head screwdrivers, or screws, in the front and the back. The hip joints have been reinforced. Some of these screws will come out later. They're just kind of there holding the plate in place. And this is the top. Underneath, there's the hole, which the little plug will go in, and it will reinforce that hip joint so it won't tear right off the side of the suit with the stress of walking. Here's a little bit more work on the tail. Okay, I've added these things. I don't know what to call them. Maybe they're spats to the feet. And over here I'm getting ready to do the thighs. And we have a piece of foam. It's cut in a barrel-like fashion, and it's ready to be wrapped around this form and then glued together to give this sort of barrel-like shape that we see here. And then other layers will be added on top of it, both to add rigidity and strength and to give interest, more unique contour. Over here on the upper torso, these L-shaped pieces have been added. The excess will be carved away, and it will allow sort of a ridge to be formed at the rear of the shoulder to give more of a bulky, muscular appearance from the front. And we'll see a shot of that when that's done also. One of the dilemmas that presents you when you have a large carving job to do is fumes. It is mid-January and it's about 2 degrees outside, so I can't really do a lot of carving out in the basement here, and outside it's hard to keep the hot wire hot enough to do the carving. So some tasks like this that are very carving intensive, I was able to do a little bit on some relatively warm days, but now that the temperature is down into the single digits, this has sort of been relegated to warmer times. Otherwise, the fumes that build up from the carving, which normally just smell bad, are also an issue for ventilation, because I believe they are somewhat cancer-causing. So that's one of those little things that goes along with the business of working with plastics and polymers and foam and all that. So it's risk management, and you just decide to yourself that this is something I'm going to wait until I can have the windows open or do outside of my garage with some cross ventilation and really minimize the risk. Here we have the neck. Now this is sort of firmed up and it's very rigid now. It's no longer kind of floating free. All the rings line up, and the spine has been cut, and so now this is going to be the base for the head to sit on. It'll probably anchor with a couple of screws. The shoulders have been sort of developed a little bit. They're going to be these are going to be the rocket pods that come off behind the arms, and they have to be carved in. Some details have been added here. A molding strip. Also, there are some supports internal to the neck which give it rigidity and help keep things in position. The spinal column, which is back here, gives it a degree of support, but it does not provide 3 points of anchoring. So that's the point of these. There's one on the other side too, and they run all the way from the head platform up here, run all the way through the 3 rings down and anchor in the shoulders. Also, this is a plate that's been added to the back. This exists on the figure and in the real suit. This will form an extra level of bracing here for the rear fin, which actually goes through 2 layers and anchors solidly into the pink foam, which you can see all the way in the middle. And the secondary fins will anchor right up against it, with drywall screws right through to give them extra rigidity, so they're not just sort of doing this sort of flapping in the wind sort of thing. I found that to be a fragile area. And again, this is the other rocket pod that will be carved in. It's more of a mount for the rocket pod, but it will be the base of the contour. One of the hardest things when you build something is cutting it apart. Now this is the torso, chest piece rather, and it is cut apart so that this allows entry, and this portion is put on by the road crew to help me get into it, but otherwise you would be unable to do so. So here is the inside. The chest plate's been removed for a moment. That would be down here, so I can work on that some more, and then it'll be glued back onto here. But so far, this is a look at the inside. Here's the spine there. There's the piece sticking down that will go into the lower pelvis. You can see it's actually reinforced on the inside with a second piece of foam. And looking up into the neck compartment, the spine continues up and it fits nicely so that the view that you have is approximately this. Now, I'm not sure how this is coming out, but this is the view that the suit wearer has. Sometimes you have to remove nails. The nails that I used initially to secure this here while it dried, because it's a laminate and it's under stress, I had to remove because they would have been poking through right into my back, which is not a lot of fun. Safety, although not primary, is something you do have to consider. Like I said, how I sometimes skip ahead on certain parts of the project so I can try out new things. This is my first piece that I've skinned. This is a piece of x-ray film that's been cut and molded to the contour of the front of the pelvis, and it's been liquid nailed in place, and it's held there by some pins right there. And I'm not sure that I'm that happy with the cleanness of the lines that I'm able to get with this. A lot of it has to be cut precisely and put on multiple times before actually gluing it, and you only really see the final contours and the final lineup of all the angles once you paint it, because these stripes make it hard to really tell the overall pattern, how it will look when it's done. So I may end up redoing this part. I didn't think this could get any more boring! Similarly, over here is the spat for the foot. And this is the spat that follows a curvature. So now you can see how it dips in between the toes. There's another spat that will go over right in this area here that will be made out of that blue foam that you see up here with the with these. So this kind of skinning process is a bit of an experiment, but that's why you do this stuff. Okay, here's the rest of the pelvis skinned, at least superficially. Whoops. This is stuck with spray adhesive instead of liquid nails like the front portion is, just because I think it worked out a lot better. It gives me instantaneous bond. It's just really great. I've also begun putting the fabric on the tail, and so you hang it and you pin it in place while the liquid nails dries. Now in this case you have to use liquid nails because it's a porous fabric, and by doing that it allows the liquid nails to penetrate the fabric a little bit to give it a better grip. And so here's the final plate in place. It's not yet really attached to the sides, but that won't matter because the side has yet to be detailed. So it looks like it went okay. We'll see how it sets up. What it's worth, this first trial with the liquid nails also didn't come out that well because of this rippling effect. And I may redo this area, or I may do something else with it to cover it up. But I'm not that satisfied with it. This shows with the paint, and who knows what this is going to show like with the paint. But by the time I put all the little details, you know, on here and little bits and pieces that go on there, it may camouflage it adequately, it may not, you never know. Well, as for the spray adhesive experiment, it worked fairly well with the exception of a few areas that pop loose, so I'm going to have to manage those kind of locally and kind of take care of them as they come up. But I think this is going to be an okay technique. The next thing is this being completely done. Now it's time to lay the plates on. These plates are made of X-ray film that are bent and cut to form each individual segment of the tail. So this will be connected in the same way as these panels with spray adhesive, and probably a little bit more generously, I guess, and then eventually spray painted to give it the silver look. But there's that side, and then the other side is here waiting to be applied. Okay, the next completed part is preliminary spray on the primary spat, which is down here. This is just silver. This used to be that X-ray film that I showed earlier. This is so I can judge the contour, and it seems to have worked out fairly well. Then there's the secondary spat, which is this piece, this blue piece right here. This fits over the primary spat, and it's basically screwed right into the side, and that'll be camouflaged later. Of note, there's a space here, and I'm not going to do anything with this space. This goes straight through to the tennis shoe, and you know, for nothing else but ventilation purposes and just ease of assembly. When your average person is looking at it like this, there's really no viewpoint up into that space, and that's kind of something I'll talk about as I go along. Things that you don't need to do because nobody's going to see them. May not seem like too complex a thing, but actually this project is going to have a lot of those sorts of considerations in them. For example, the tail, which has now had this put on it, underneath has the bare exposed bulkheads, but a lot of that will not be covered up simply because that part is not visible. Here we have the beginning of the two legs, upper legs I should say, or thighs, and this is the form I bent them over. So now it's going to be a matter of making support for this, which this is really just to give me a contour to work with. This is nothing, it's going to be truly structural by itself. And I'll show you how that works as we go along. Inside there's a piece of the pink foam in a circle, and that basically will act as a bulkhead. Later I'll have to cut it out. You can see one of the screws that I've used to secure it that has come through. Eventually those will all come out too, because otherwise that's going to hurt when I put my leg through. Progress. Here is the knees, and have to trim up this part here, but these will eventually mount on here like this, and they will be the kneecaps. And down here we have one of the thighs. Now this is built over that bottle, that big plastic bottle form that I showed, which is this portion built like that, and then there's another piece that's glued and foamed over it. Now that's expanding foam that I used liquid nails to hold in place also. The expanded foam just sort of adds strength and holds or fills the space. You can't possibly use that much liquid nails. So this is the slot here in the front, where you'll see in the front of the thigh right there where there's some sort of device. I don't know what kind of thing it is, but anyway, so that's going to go there, and it has not yet been trimmed properly. And to hold the outer layer on, you have to tape it down and hold it under a fair amount of tension. So that's what you see here. And gradually I'll release this, and all this inner part gets trimmed away because that doesn't show. So to get an idea what that looks like, let's look at the other one, which has already had this done. So you can see here, this is a much more recognizable looking Mechagodzilla thigh with the plate on the side. Other plates will fill this and give it more of the look that you recognize, but you can see the basic shape already there. And for comparison, right there. And actually the knee gets joined right there. It does not join on the lower leg. I'm sorry, I had to watch a video to confirm that. But anyway, there's the direct comparison. Now with the second one done, we have the hole through it. That's where my leg and the joint is going to have to pass. Hope there's enough room. Now another perspective, or keeping things in perspective look, we have the real thighs instead of the fake thigh inserts in approximate position. This has been very helpful because I've identified one problem. The knee joints on the lower legs are too far back. If you compare this with the model, you can see that. So what I'm going to have to do is, when you look at it like, not that one. When you look at this one, and you look down, you can see, for this to be in the proper alignment, your leg is pretty much going to have to fit into this little rear half there, which is not going to happen. But that's okay. What I'm going to do is trim out this front wall here at an angle so that your leg can still, the wearer's leg can still fit down there. The joint itself I'll take out here, and I've already cut holes to move it up forward so that it'll still be attached. The only thing is it won't be continuous with the ankle joint in terms of being one piece of tubing connected to another straight piece of tubing that comes up here, through here, and anchors into this fixture. And I don't know if I showed before, but in here there are now some little fittings, and these form the place where the PVC pipe anchors into the hips, and all of this space in here will eventually be filled in with expanding foam also to give more rigidity, and then capped off and fastened, capped off here with another piece of foam and fastened to here, so that that will give a much more rigid construction. But anyway, so that is probably the first major physical problem I've had with the suit, and I think it'll be okay, but it's just going to require a little bit of finagling. Well, here is the thigh, and I've created these here. These are these slots where there's another gizmo sitting. I've adapted it so that now the actual post is moved forward for the knee joint, and I'm going to be changing the knee joints too. They won't be the PVC pipe joints, but a piece of PVC hose that is flexible and more mobile in more directions. It'll also allow me a little bit more freedom inside the suit. As another experiment, rather than take the time to build the vacuum forming table, which I think is going to be, it's about half done, but it's another big time pit, I've taken foam and I've built these. So it's going to save me money on resin and on time building the forming table, and then the whole learning curve that goes along with making that. So these are essentially hollow, and when they're done, they will just fit down on here. This will also give me the opportunity to kind of tailor these a little bit better to the actual size that I need. I think these might be a little too large. So if I'd have spent all the money in resin, got them all cast, and then figured that out, that would have been kind of a drag. So anyway, that's what that looks like. And I do these little things to sort of get an overall perspective again, kind of tease myself for the result way ahead of its availability. Now, this is one of the thighs on the inside. I've taken this piece of PVC rod, pipe rather, and I've expanding foamed it into place. I'll have to shave back a fair amount of this because it does expand so much, but it'll be okay and it'll hold it pretty rigidly in place. So I may have to reinforce that a bit when it's done, but overall this is coming together. Also, I've shaved off this. This is now on a bevel. It used to be flat like this on the bottom, but now it's shaved off on a bevel, and this allows, as the leg moves back and forth during walking, it allows it some space here right behind the knee to contract, to pivot and hinge so that I can actually walk. Also, you'll note here that the thigh is mounted at a slight angle to the calf and the foot. This is to allow a wider stance because these fourth claws are going to be awfully easy to step on as you're walking, and you hate to be disintegrating your own suit as you walk along. Okay, this is the first completed leg unit. It's roughly completed, but the toes, which are done by a cheaper, more practical method, and upper leg are finally permanently installed. So the toes are basically just folded foam, and if we look at this example here, you can see that underneath they're quite hollow, and they're just affixed with liquid nails onto the toes, the toe structure. And there's a lot of detail work to be done yet, obviously, but that's approximately what they'll look like. Now this is the other foot, but the completed leg is here, and this has yet to have the knee added on here, but this is what I wanted to show you. Instead of doing the previous design with the PVC pipes that interlock, I had to go with something that was more flexible and that I could adjust in the final stages of assembly. So I used this cord reinforced PVC hose, which actually bonds very well with PVC cement to the PVC pipe that's the structure of that forms the bones of the suit. So basically we ended up with something like this, and I took little divots out of the back here to allow it to flex more readily, otherwise it would be too stiff and put too much stress on the bones of the suit. So there's that, and this will connect here. I have to trim this off, and this will connect via a flexi pipe into here, and the other side is here. Now this goes through at an angle through the structure of the side. Now this is not a cosmetic side here. The outer cosmetic layer will fit like this over it, and it will be all sandwiched up, and no one will ever really be able to see it. But that's that. So let's look at one other thing. This is another one of those things you notice. Sometimes the things don't come together exactly as you planned. The hip joints are going to have to go together a little bit differently, and it's going to be interesting because these are going to be stepping on each other. So more on that later. More about spines. I've started figuring out the approximate contour of the spines for the upper portion of the suit, and this one may end up getting reduced just a titch, but I tried a fairly robust one just because it's such a huge spine, and I thought I might see how that looks if I did it up a bit. I've begun the task of cutting out the spines for the tail, and these are all pretty meticulously marked. I kind of code them. This is tail section 8, and this is a center marked with a C. And some of the other ones I've done, this is tail section 1 with an R, meaning it goes on the right, on the suit's right. So
Hi. Striking resemblance, don't you think? Whoops. I'm going to get in trouble for that.
These are the knees, and the styrofoam balls that form the front of the knees aren't quite large enough. They don't make them large enough, well, at least not at the store where I went. So I created these sort of flanges to go around them, and it'll actually be mounted like this. And then I'll cut it to size and bond it with the upper section of the leg, and that'll be good to go. I pre-bent this. This is not to put too much stress on it all at once, so you just kind of go around with your finger or your two hands and just pre-bend it, and that stops it from breaking when you finally put it on. Okay, here's another progress shot. Spines are in place on both sides, and it's looking like it's going to be pretty big. Of note, the little secondary spines that fit on here are not in place yet. Okay, now we're at the stage where the final layer has been applied to the thigh, and you can see there's actually 3 layers. This is the inner structural layer that was built around the form. This is just some filler foam. There's another layer here, and then the outer layer here. And the outer layer gives it a final level of bulk. It also gives us these seams in between the panels that you see on the larger Kiryu suit. The knee is in place, as is the lower shin right there. One of those temporary things to ease assembly for one person, had to block the knee joint and tape it so that the whole leg assembly stays still. While we're here, let's pan over here, and we can see the tail spikes already going in.
Oh, I see a monster there.
I decided not to use the x-ray film on the back surface of the tail. That comes down to the reason of putting the tail spikes right in. They actually have a little tongue that goes into that, and to cut through the x-ray film it would be very difficult. That stuff is very hard, and it goes through a lot of X-Acto blades. The downside is some of this tore off some of the thin film that seals the foam, and you can see the edge right there having the plastic here and then the bare foam there. So I'm going to have to work something out with some acrylic or something that'll hold that'll help that take paint better, otherwise the foam will be eaten alive. I'm also working on something to find an acrylic primer to do all these, but these will actually be removed and then carved into a little bit smoother, more regular shape. These are just the cutouts that are sort of raw, and I have to do some finishing work on them. Actually, they're just here to sort of make me feel like I'm making some progress and give me an overall idea of proportion. Okay, here we have the upper thigh with all the binding tape removed. It's been about 12 hours, and the liquid nails is pretty much set up. Also, I've put the joint pipe in, and this is going to have to be adjusted. This is just in there so I don't lose the part, but I will put it together, sort of get into the suit and make sure that the distance from here to here is correct for my height. But it should be pretty close. Otherwise, you can see I'm really excited about the compound curves I've been able to do with this blue Dow foam. I didn't think I'd be able to do it, and I thought I'd probably have to use shrink wrap and over a carved surface, but this stuff has just been really incredible, even though I was pretty ticked off initially when I saw the product, because I was looking for a thicker one, which was the Owens Corning pink product. So it just kind of shows that sometimes you get something you didn't expect, and it turns out to be better than you thought it would, and you get to use it for things that you never thought you could. So panning around here, we see the entire surface of the leg. The binding tape is still on here on the knees because they're under quite a bit of tension. I'm going to leave that on for about 2 or 3 days to sort of make sure that liquid nails heats up, or cures up pretty well before I do anything that would jeopardize that, because unfortunately once the liquid nails dries, it may be hard to get it back down if it pops up and dries in the out popped up position. So the next thing to do is probably going to be adding some details to the heels here, doing some things with carving of the pink structural foam, and then putting in the black fabric that spans this distance to that distance. There's some piston-like structures that also go in here, from here to here, and I'm going to do something about that, but it'll probably involve PVC tubing and something that I haven't really had time to think about yet, or I might not address it at all. I'm not sure. So once again, there we have it. And I'm kind of getting at the point now where I'm saying to myself, you know, it's got a good chance of working out. All these spines will have to be completed and then trimmed, because they're all sort of very, very close in size, and I want to make sure it gives that nice tapered appearance to the tail. So I'll have to do it all with them all positioned and then do it relative to each other, and that'll take a bit of time too. So even though I'm looking at a huge amount of work yet to do, it's really something that's not feeling so undoable at this point. Even though I kind of always was sure that it could be done, you get to a point where you have enough different parts going on, you have enough sort of 1/4 finished pieces laying around, and you just think, you know, what was I thinking? Well, I'm kind of getting out of that stage now, and that's a good feeling. So most of the groundwork has been laid for the lower part of the body, and that's where I've been focusing probably the last 6 months on. The next 5 months will be doing the upper part of the body, doing the arms, which should be relatively brief, and the head, which also, believe it or not, should be relatively brief, and then finishing it up with the detailing, as I said, on the legs, and what will come on the arms, etc., and then the final painting. So there's still quite a bit to come. That's for Sydney! Okay, I don't own any scaffolding, so I had to take the head off, and I'm kind of making a pattern here to cut two sides out. These are going to form outer bulkheads that are sort of hanging out in space. The head is going to be largely hollow, so I've taken this off of here, I've traced it onto this piece of paper, and I'm going to make two outer bulkheads. Now this is actually going to be made up of several layers. This is the innermost layer, this is the middle layer, and this is the top layer. So this will sit behind. This is the same layer as this and this. So this will sit inside, so it'll be sitting on this side of the foam. This other one up here will be sitting on this side of the foam, and this part of the foam forms that middle layer as I described earlier. So this is the point at which you start to say, you know, I can take a few liberties here, and I'll show you why. When you look at the heads of the three figures, like this one, and this one, and this one, there are subtle differences, and I don't think there's really any right one. These are all individual sculptors' takes on making something that really truly looks like Mechagodzilla, but may in fact be somewhat inaccurate. And you see those inaccuracies between the models when you look at them. So I don't doubt that someone is going to come up, hold up a Bondi next to my suit and say, hey, you didn't get that right. But I mean, the matter of the fact is that no one suit is exact, or not, no one source is exactly the same as all the others. So at this point I think I can relax a little bit, and as long as I'm getting the look that I want, I think there are going to be some variances, and that's okay. Well, sometimes you got to have entertainment in the in the workshop. So while I'm working, I'm watching Gamera 3. It's time to work on the head. So, rather than do a solid piece and carve everything out like I did with the first Mechagodzilla, instead I've taken this and used laminate pieces to construct this. But again, the other one was laminate, but this is largely going to be hollow space. So I took the form and I traced out, as I showed before, the contours of this, with this section is slightly different with a recess here, which is part of this section here on this level, and then this level here, which forms this, or sorry, behind the spine here. And then I came up with a piece, an angled piece here, and this is a flat piece. Sort of give it a bit of an angling outward toward the back of the head. It's fairly subtle, but you can see it here too. It's a bit of an outward angle. And I can kind of work with that a little bit if it turns out that this is not enough of an angle. So, starting on the back of the head first, just so I don't lose heart, this is a little bit easier. I've made this first part here. This is an insert that goes here, down here, and it latches on here. The next piece goes here. And this has been cut out, but to make the contour correct, I had to use a couple of drywall screws as sort of risers to make it stick out a little bit farther, because anytime you're using a form like this, you always have to undercut it, because if you don't, then when you finally put your finished layer on, it's going to be sticking out too far, and you're going to end up with the same problem I ended up with the legs on the 74 Mechagodzilla. The problem I had there was that the actual bulkhead, or this piece, was cut to the outside diameter, so when you put the next piece on like that, it made it that much wider. And you know, if you're talking an inch or 2 inches, I mean, that really makes a big difference in the overall look of the project. So you can see I've made it a cut here and beveled it so that when I put the next piece here, it can follow the contour and keep the angle, keep this angle here. So just some little tidbits. This will become more rigid as I work through it, but right now, okay, here's that second plate in place, and seeing what the curvature is, I've sort of marked it and cut it. So this is now joined, as is this. We get both sides joined. This is pinned in place here with these floral pins until the glue dries, or liquid nails I should say. Now it's really starting, at least from the back, to look like a Mechagodzilla head. About 1 month and 1 vacation later, here's where we stand. I've added an extra layer here to give me what I was looking for in terms of the width of the head. This is also built up in the snout area. And you can see this goes on over the top, which this is going to be one of the top fins on the head. And this comes off, and in here inside I've laid little supports for these, which these are little bike lights, and you can make them flash in various patterns, and you can have them on steady, or you can have them doing this sort of thing. I used these in the other Mechagodzilla suit when they were in the display last year at G-Fest. So these will basically sit inside the head approximately there, and you'll be looking at that. So again, this is the head, and the lower jaw has a mount here for a hinge, so it will attach, straddle this piece. I'll give you that. I think the actual suit, it actually goes up and down in a vertical fashion like that, but I'm not going to do that. It's a little complex a mechanism for this suit. So anyway, got 2 of those little doodads, and the head is starting to look much more like the head. Well, taking time to focus on something other than the head right now, I've cut out the panels from the side, so this has really opened up the space of the upper torso, and there'll be large hoses made out of this material here, and they'll be going front to back here and wrapping around the back. So much for that. I have to build a mounting piece right here for the hoses, and also right here up front. Back to the head. Started on the rough sculpts for the eyebrows. Here's the most up-to-date view of the head. The snout is more carved. These portions have been added in. This is just bent X-ray film, so I guess I did get to use some of that in the final analysis. There is a clear bezel over the eye, which you can see the very fine line of right there. And that is not a bezel, a lens I should say, and that is made out of a 2-liter pop bottle because it had nice compound curves, and bike safety lights behind each little eye cavity. So this is where we stand now. There's one huge mistake I've made, and that is how this line here at the top of the head and this line here are supposed to be parallel to one another, whereas this one is canted somewhat down. So I'm going to have to do a little bit of fixing there. But all in all, that's almost the final contours with most of the details built in for the head. I'm shocked. That's it. Okay, here's where we are with the head now. The panels here are tentatively positioned. Each one of them is cut individually, and there's a piece here. These are for creating some of the odd contours on here that I really want to have be pretty smooth. Eventually I'm going to have to do this, but I wanted to get this contour first so I could do this to match that contour, not this to match this contour. The eyebrows are in place, and you can see the eyes glowing inside. Now this is going to be sort of the berserker version of Kiryu. So he'll be somewhat out of control. The next thing to do will be to create the little earphone, I call it, that goes inside here, and you have the tube coming down through the neck, or down to the neck, and then filling in a lot of this area with black fabric and tubing. And finally I have to construct the lower jaw, which is over here, and this is not the tongue, but this is going to go on the inside, and it will move up and down like that, hopefully, if I have time to make the mechanism. So for now, it's about 1:30 in the morning on April the 24th, I think. I've tentatively installed the lower jaw, which has the gums, or the gum guards in there, as I think of them. Basically, the next step for the jaws is going to be adding teeth, and that will be about it. I've decided I probably won't be able to make the jaws move in this rendition of the suit, but like the other 74 suit, this will probably go through several revisions and have parts added to it. One of the items I've been working on is this. This is one of the, call them headphones, that goes on here in this space on the side of the head. So we're waiting on the liquid nails to dry that's holding this tube in place, and then we'll be ready to see what that looks like. These are the headphones, as I call them. These go on right here, and I carved these just out of a piece of foam, and it was kind of a pain in the rear, but it is what it is. Just a little piece of tubing going sort of stuck in the back with some liquid nails, and so I have to wait for that to dry, and then we'll see what that all looks like when it's all assembled. I don't know if I ever really showed anything to good advantage with this, but basically there are several pieces here that form the top of the head. There's this flat piece, and then two flat pieces that are curved around, a little piece that fits in the center down here at the lower fin, the middle fin, and then the upper fin. And this one goes all the way through down to the bottom, so we can see how this arrangement works. And from the back, it's fairly obvious. However, the back is not going to be visible very well when you're wearing the suit, but from the front and the side, it gives a really great effect. So that's kind of part of special effects, is creating what you are creating sort of to be viewed from a certain perspective or certain viewpoint, and not worrying about what cannot be seen from all the other viewpoints. Okay, scooting ahead, I talked about a problem that I had with these not being at the right angle. This has to be parallel to the angle of the head here. Well, so now I've done these corrected pieces, and you can see because of the light where the difference is. So I'm going to have to trim off the pink in this part, and I'm most likely going to take some of this blue and box it in here and here, and everything will work out. It'll just be a little bit of a side project, but I think, you know, you can fudge a little bit on detail sometimes, but when you're talking about sort of, you want to call them cardinal lines of contour within things, you really got to have it right. And if you've got that right, the rest just sort of is fine. But if you change the alignment of things, you create a different expression on the face and a different. Moving to the shoulders, here we see the front and the back have been added, and there's the area that's going to be cut out. Here's the other side, the right side, and it's more clearly marked. So that's this ready to go. Now in retrospect, I can see that this, having been cut out, is too narrow for my shoulder, and it looked good on the drawing board, but I think the size isn't going to work. So I'm going to have to do a cut right down the long axis here and make some alterations. So that's half the fun of this, and we'll talk about that later. These teeth are made out of Sculpey, actually super Sculpey, because it's this beige color, and they're individually sort of rolled between your fingers and you bake them. So now going to the jaws, we have several stages of development. First off, there's about 50 or so teeth here. So we have, this is a front, these are like incisors, and they're sort of embedded into this here, this little piece of foam, and that's for the upper jaw. Because of gravity, I haven't put that in yet, because the teeth will fall out while the liquid nails are drying. But if we go over here to the lower jaw, we can see several stages of development. We've got here the same thing, except it's in place, and you can see how there's a little back there, which sort of gives them something to stick to also. Then there's here, and before you, these are in the main side gums. Now you have to mark your holes to make sure they're all even, and then you take the hot wire tool, which is here, shaped into a shape like that, and you sort of put it in and sort of like make a little pocket for the teeth to sit in, or a socket rather. So you can see here these sockets have been made, and that's where they go. And there's some teeth in place. And let's look at one other thing. Okay, here's the head trial fitted onto the body just for overall scale, and the teeth are now in place, and I took a moment to make sure they're all reasonably well aligned. There's some chin detail that I have to do here, obviously, and I've got one eye sort of just stuck in there, so I can kind of get an impression for what it looks like. But overall, it's not looking too bad. Some detail's been added to the main fins. It's this little panel here that probably going to put some kind of pattern on it, but I'm not sure yet. That goes on that one and on that one. And pretty soon I'm going to have to start building the framework for the super weapon that goes on there. And it'll likely just slip into a couple of holes that I'll put here so I can take it on and off, and it's not going to be too big of a production. It's just a simple quick disconnect. And then have an airline that runs probably down here and exits the body somewhere, so that the suit handler can actually operate the rockets. The head's in place. some of the suit will get skinned, and you can see that here. I've done these 3 levels of the neck, trying to keep it all in even contour, and then the hose channels that come off of here, off the headphones that go down there. So that's where we stand. The jaw is not in its final position, and just keep on trucking. This is a quick primer test spray. I just basically did this to see what the head looks like all in one color, and also the neck. Make sure the contour is all lined up, because some of this isn't obvious until you actually spray paint it. And the principal lines are largely looking good. But we have a few problems. Problem number 1 is the marker that I pretty much use everywhere on this is bleeding through the paint, so that's not good. Hopefully successive coats of paint will take care of that, but it's certainly going to be more than 1 coat. But that's okay, because it would be anyhow. The paint is adhering in different ways. Here on this piece it's not adhering very well here, but it's adhering pretty well here. These issues don't really bother me, because this is that X-ray film, and this will take the regular paint no problem. What would bother me, and is not a problem thus far, is this portion, which is the carved foam. You can see that takes the paint pretty well, but again the X-ray film here is getting that weird sort of organic pattern. Here the covers for that mis-sculpted area have been filled in, and you can see the back. Now this is what it looks like before the back goes on. You can see it's hollow inside there. This is a panel here, and this is another panel here. They just fit on there, and this little block just goes in to give some sort of stability to this while I get ready to put the other cap on here. And I'll probably fill in this area with something else too. But all in all, it wasn't too bad a fix. Here's a detail I wasn't sure if I was actually going to carry through with, but it's these nostril projections. This is sort of an homage to the 74 Mechagodzilla suit, and we'll see how this all looks when it's painted up, but it was a thing I decided to go with to make this an interesting, not exact representation, but make it continuous with the whole line of Mechagodzilla suits. So these are just aquarium riser tubing that's sort of jammed into the foam, and all that ragged pink area will be covered over with filler before spray painting. Well, now we go forward a few weeks in schedule. Here's the head. It's all been sprayed. The teeth, all 50 of them, are pretty much in place and aligned, and we have those corrections built on, and that's been completely boxed in, so you really can't see that. Got the lines, like, I don't know if they're like cooling vents or whatever. That's pretty much all defined in there. And once again, the tubes, again, all that space that you see in the blocks behind it will be sort of covered up with black fabric, and the detail has yet to be put onto here, and the lines, and certainly the red line that goes down here. But by and large, the head is pretty much done. So the eyes have been installed, and they do light up. The head crown unscrews here and one on the opposite side, as did the last Mechagodzilla, and this just allows for ease of access to turn the lights on and off, and kind of saves you from having to rig up some internal wiring, which is just more work. So this is pretty heavy, and you can see some screw holes here, right down there. This will have to be screwed with about 4 screws into the plate on top of the neck, because the head is actually quite heavy, and because of the teeth it definitely wants to pitch forward, and that's kind of an embarrassing thing to have happen during a costume competition. Some more details have been added over here. This horizontal line that runs around the belt, these brackets, and this continues around the back. And this is just a piece of foam that's cut in a ribbon, and it's adhered with liquid nails. Another thing I did on the way of testing out some ideas, these bolts or the bosses, or whatever you want to call them, but they appear on the suit. And I didn't know how to make them and have them all look right, because there are some that are different sizes here. And I thought, what's a nice little repeatable shape that I can go and buy off the counter? Here I got away with the Easter eggs. You see them on this knee, and then over here in their original color. But what am I going to use for that? And then it struck me, little googly eyes. And you can see these eyes come in different sizes, and I was able to use them. And I just hope that as I'm walking along, people don't hear the googly eyes rattling. Okay, this is my daughter Elena, and just for size comparison, she comes up just about to his armpit, and that's not a very enticing place to be. But anyway, once I put the head on and it's fully in place, it's going to be quite tall, and I don't think it's going to be something that you want rattling around loose up there. So again, 4 screws to hold it in place. That's just one of those little details that you cannot forget on this sort of thing. I also have included in tonight's festivities trimming the tail plates up, and these are the side plates. So what it basically entails is taking a piece of x-ray film, bending it, adhering it with liquid nails on here, and then just letting it hang to dry overnight. The next day you come down, find your cardinal crease lines, just bend them in there, and then wrap it around, find where it bends underneath the tail, bend in another crease line there, and then you start cutting to basically follow the panel that's just ahead of it. And so while they're not absolutely perfect, you end up with a pretty regular look here that's going to work very well. Here is what they look like before that. These I just did tonight, and again, they're adhered here with liquid nails, and they're going to be drying for about 24 to 48 hours before I start cutting them up and worrying about any of that. So anyway, that's where I am with that. Now, one thing I didn't mention is that the super weapon frame has been put into place, and here it is. There are these are rough contours here.
Boom, boom, boom.
Excuse me, Bear. These are rough contours, and you can see here too that this actually occupies the space that one of the fins sits on. So I've cut a notch for that, and it's going to sit up there when it's all done to give a nice line up the back with the spines. So the internal plumbing for the pneumatic operation is going to run on the top of here, up here, because you won't be able to see it, and once it's painted it'll be just some more interesting detail. A pneumatic tube will be running down inside the body. Now this is mounted, you can see here, with these two. There's another pipe on the other side, and that goes into a hole in the top of the shoulders. Now looking through the armhole, you can see the one on the opposite side coming down. So this gives some rigidity to the mount, and yet it allows it to flex some, but it's just plain old not going to fall off. So that's that, and this is just sort of a way for me to stand back again and get an idea for the actual size and contour of it. Are the angles right? And once it's on, is it going to line up with everything else? So the next thing to do is going to be future member of Screen Actors Guild. The next thing is going to be working on the chest and the chest plate. Unfortunately, I'm not going to have time, because of the way life is right now, to do any opening and closing mechanisms for this. Now, this does separate cleanly here, so that I can retrofit that in the future. And a lot of times these things end up being works in progress anyway, so at least that's my excuse, and I'm sticking to it. Either way, it's going to look good, but it's not going to be opening and closing and doing the things that I would like it to do this year. So, and here's a shot of the head now in place with the war paint applied. These are some panel lines I drew on, and I think it works fairly well. So that's the head in place, and now we'll look at the tail and how this has all been trimmed out all the way down to there. Now remains to do the other side in exactly the same fashion. Also, these spikes have been rounded off, and they'll need to have their detail, which goes up here. They're like little I don't know, little details. I don't know how to better describe it. Sort of like this, that sort of spring up on the sides. So they'll be there, and I have a whole bunch more of those to do all the way down the tail. So all the spinal, I don't know, spines or the lines or whatever, the things that are on the side here, they're on all the way down. And that was a bit of work. Also, I've done the other side of the tail with these X-ray panels. They're just not cut yet. So that's another thing under another piece or amount of water under the bridge. This may go directly to the editing room floor, but these are the some details that I've completed for the back of the heels, and next I'm going to be doing the calf skin, so it looks a little bit better than just that sort of structural support that's there now. Okay, here's one complete mounted on the super weapon frame. Here's here, and this side you can see actually passes through, and then here's the air tubing that's coming off, and as yet it just dangles free because there's nothing to connect it to yet. You know, part of building something like this over a long period of time is being adaptable and flexible. I'm actually moving to Wisconsin, and I've put my house up for sale, so I had to insist that certain areas of the house be off exhibit for potential buyers unless it's absolutely required, and that means if they're putting a bid down and they really want to close on the house and inspect it. So this is one way to do it. In the meantime, I've had to do some trimming of the area in here to make my house look a little larger. So I've still got the workshop, and I've got what I'm actively working on right now, which is the chest, and this is going to be a bit of a crisis because of another issue of adaptation. This is my hot wire, and as with any piece of equipment, you will have equipment failures. This device is really wonderful, but I've had it since '98, and it's given me a lot of service. Unfortunately, it chose the middle of this project to burn out the transformer, which is this, and apparently it's only available through the manufacturer. So I'm going to have a little bit of an expense here, I think. In the meantime, the chest over here needs to have some major contours carved into it, and I'm debating whether or not to do this with the hot wire or to use something like a hacksaw blade, cut them real rough, and then use this blue foam as foam paneling to sort of create a built-up yet sort of shell of a chest. And I don't know, we'll see. It'll be interesting to see how I do with what I thought were going to be these curved contours in here, and certainly the sides down here by the vents. That was all going to be carved. And on a related topic, not really, tedium is forcing me to change tacks here. So basically, these are the rockets that will fire from the super weapon on the shoulders, and here they are, oops, in place on what I call firing manifolds. And it's basically PVC tubing again, and the goal is that air will be forced through here and launch these in this fashion. Unfortunately, we have a misfire, but anyway, that's the idea. One of these will be inside each of the barrels of the super weapon, and you know, you'd have 6 rockets firing ideally from each one, but we're just going to go with 3 because that's just what we're going to go with, and that's on the lighter side. I've cleared out this room, which used to house my collection, and packed it up, and I've turned it into sort of another area to store stuff that's largely complete. And believe it or not, this is largely complete. It's complete to the stage at which it could be painted, and after that I'll have to put in all the fabric that bridges the gaps from the legs to the pelvis, that sort of thing. And there's a couple of things I have to carve yet, but again, I may try this paneling over sort of technique, and I'll kind of show you how that goes. In the meantime, all the tail panels are cut, and I've put on these cable stringers that go along the side, or cable funnels, or whatever you want to call them. And so it starts here, it runs all the way down the tape, or down the tail. I have yet to finish the rest of the length, but they're not too bad. They're just pieces of x-ray foam folded over in a half a funnel. So more on that as things progress. This is an important thing. It's about perspective and the way you view things. Now here's the head, and I'm very satisfied with this view. What happens is sort of like the weirdness that happens to the King Goji suit when you come to another view. And I think his head is too tall. You kind of lose a little bit of the menace that you have here, because his face looks a bit pinched from side to side. I think one potential solution, although I probably will not have time to do it, is to stretch these side panels out a little bit more, and would also be to move these nose panels out a little bit more. So maybe, as these suits tend to be continually upgraded, maybe in a later edition I'll do something minor like that. It's not too bad in terms of time, but it's more time consuming than the time that I have left. Okay, this is just another update. You may notice I'm skipping some of the finer points just because I think I've outlined them to death in some of the earlier segments. So here I've got the head on, and it's just there for scale, and I don't know, sort of a confidence booster at this point. Sort of as an homage to the original 74 Mechagodzilla, I've included these globes here on either side of the neck, and as I said, I was planning on taking some liberties, and this is one of them. Now, I've mounted the cores of the super weapon here. You can see the tubes that are going to hold the rockets, and coming down here. I had to do some realignment on the fins because they weren't lining up. They were kind of jutting out at about a 30-degree angle. That wasn't such a good deal. These are the pneumatic tubes. They're going to come together via this little Y piece, and I'm not sure exactly where this is going to route, maybe down there or something, but this base here is proving too thick to put it through. It's something I didn't think about at the time that I started, and well, looky here, you can see the misalignment in here, and you know what, I'm just going to live with that. I don't think that's something that's worth worrying about at this point. Another thing I have to do is trim this up and make this fit properly like this side does. And then ultimately the last thing to do after painting will be putting in the fabric spans here so that it really looks right. And once that's done, I'll be able to move on and get the arms done. And that's it for now. I'm not sure how obvious this is. This is the super weapon, and it's just a folded piece of foam like this. It sits on here in this fashion. Now this is the raw piece, and I have to trim it down quite a bit. But this is, I'm going to make a duplicate of this, so I'll have a spare and start cutting, and this will form that. Whoops, too close. Or at least the core of that. I want to emphasize that this material, you have to score it before you actually are able to fold it. Otherwise it tends to crack. But once you've done that, you're able to make these shapes and fold them over to make long sort of rectangular tubes, which will form the super weapon barrels. Here's one of the roughly completed tubes in place, and as you can see, here's the frame. It goes on over in this fashion, and I had to notch out some areas See that it sits all the way back like I want to. Just like so. And you can see it's notched in to fit there, and also notched in to fit into that space. A very well focused shot. But anyway, it's just a matter of custom fitting it, and then as you come around the front, you're looking straight down the barrel. And I don't have all 6 missiles firing just because I don't have the time. And one more shot with the missiles in place. I've had to anchor this with drywall screws along the top, and it's through the fact that this is not final, or this piece is not final, that I'm able to kind of correct some of the straightness issues here. This one will be matched up to this one, and it'll fire pretty much straight. One of the other issues that I'm noticing is that in addition to my fin alignment problem, I have a little problem with the alignment of this back plate. It sticks out more on this side, and I don't know if it's going to be noticeable from afar. It probably won't, and so I'm probably not too darn worried about it. Okay, same sitting, about another Gamera movie and a half later, working our way into the Magic Serpent on a work night, but it's got to get done. So here's the main part, the top, the fin that goes on there, and I've outlined some of the other detail features that are going to go on there. It's pretty self-explanatory about this at this point. Just surface details added on, little bits of flat foam that are cut to shape and glued in place over it. Fairly simple stuff, and I'm pretty glad I got all this done tonight. But that's all for now. Okay, some more details have been added. Some cooling fins, which are made out of X-ray film, and these details up on top and also on the side. So it gives it a little bit of detail there, and those have to be done yet. That's going to require my hot wire, which the power unit burned out, and I'm awaiting a replacement. So these are the kind of delays that you run into. Some minor fin detailing here, and here are these details from the back, and they have these little rocket nozzles here. They're on the outside and on the inside, and they're echoed on here by the purple Easter egg half. Like I said, if the shape is right, use it. You can always put paint on it. Okay, here's one of the panels for the front of the super weapon, and you can see I've cut a notch into it so that it can recess somewhat into this cavity here created. So here's one that's installed. From the back, I matched up the holes with the rocket tubes, and then these will all be filled with blank rockets, so they don't all fire. And then it's just put into the slot or into the space, and drywall nailed into or screwed into place. And there'll be a piece covering this, like a facing piece on the outside, so you'll never see any of those drywall nails. And why do I keep calling them nails? I'm tired. Okay, for sake of simplicity, this is now suspended here, and it's anchored to the shoulders at a nice, fairly evenly balanced load point. I'm just trying these out. These are screwed in place, and these will arch around back to the rockets that come off the shoulders. Another noteworthy thing, the quick disconnects are attached for here, and the rest of the chest is down here with the other connector of the quick disconnect. It's a fairly simple arrangement. It just runs right through the inside and pulls directly there, so it kind of holds that in place pretty securely. And what else have we got here? Some of the final parts have been added to the outside of the super weapon, and you can see those missiles nestled in there. That's just for checking size. There'll be a size of the hole, make sure they come out easily. they will actually be a little larger, and there'll be a facing plate that sits on the outside of that, I've decided. These have been added, and some other details here. These are clear right now, but they'll be silver when they're painted. Little shields to go over these rockets, and of course these details. Now in the suit, these are actually inset and they're slots, but you know, this is so much easier, and sometimes you have to make little compromises like that. I've also brought the tubing down because I can access the inside of it now the way it's mounted. I've brought them down here, down the inside of the chest. And they go to the little Y fitting. They're epoxied in place at the joints because, sorry about that, because I don't have anything else that would really work on plastic to glue these two different types of plastic together. One of the reasons for having it suspended is to accomplish something like this. I don't know if this shows up very well, but this is me inside the suit, and I'm shooting myself here, so sometimes you have to try fittings to make sure that things all, you know, fit. So I'm checking to make sure my armpit's clear, the undersides of the armholes on both sides, and also I'll be interested to see where my shoulders stick out, because that's going to affect how the arms are cut in terms of length. Okay, this is the front chest plate again. Having carved away a lot of the really bulky stuff, I've got it down to some really usable contours, but I decided I'm not going to carve the whole thing. I think I might have said that earlier. What I've decided instead to get really nice panels and cuts is use actually this is a foam support and like a core, and then these will be the facing, and obviously there'll be panels here, 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 you know, filling in the gaps. But this is where you start, so I can get the contours the way I want them, and then I'll trim them all towards the end when I put on the pieces that go in the front over here. This also allows me to have something nice and rigid for later when I go to install the energy weapon, which unfortunately is not going to be ready for this G-Fest. There's just too much going on, and it's the 11th of June. So in just about a month, maybe a little bit less, G-Fest will be practically over. So I don't have a lot of time, and I have quite a bit of work to do yet. Now, since the top panel here has to match up approximately with this, I had to install the chest plate, and it's kind of allowed me to do some cutting and trimming already so that I can kind of see the overall contour before I do it, and so far so good. I went ahead and installed the speakers right here. There's one on the other side also, and they will be covered up by a facing plate also, and I don't know if I'm going to have any kind of sound associated with this suit. But since the speakers are in, I just may. But it'll all come down to what I have time for. Here's a progress on the chest. These will not open for this year's show, but I've got them set up such that they're not glued on permanently, so I can build in hinges and then the underpinnings of them later. But for now, Kiryu's structure is rapidly approaching completion. The arms are here. These are just two pieces of foam that are cut and glued. It's kind of hard to shoot at this close a distance. I have to mark them right and left because they are indeed different. These are the bottoms of some Bionicle canisters that had a nice size and contour to them, and the tape is just until the liquid nails dries. So this is the forearm, and this happens to be the right side. Here's the right side or left side panel here, and you can see it's bent sort of in a compound curve here and here. It's not the smoothest compound curve, but it will do, and this is how it matches up. The front piece will go right on here. This back portion, specifically this, which covers the strap, there'll be another piece that goes on there. It gives you a more rounded, a smoother sort of finish, and also I think it adds strength by creating a skin to cover up these multiple different components here. So,
Okay, so this is the test shot that you have to have help for. Everything seems to work out okay. I fit. I can move pretty well. So things are pretty good. And I can weight test it, and it's pretty heavy. So, okay, now I have to get out of this. Got.
As I said, they're different because the left side has this weapon mounted on, and there's a lot of detail work to be done to make this a convincing piece. But the right one has the drill. This one has this sort of ray gun, twin-pronged. I don't know. The thing reminds me of the Garuda, actually. I think it was kind of a little bit of an homage to that. But this time it's a wrist-mounted device. These are face shield holders that I've cut and bonded together, and these are going to serve as detail on Kiryu's chest. These go like this, much like the second version of Kiryu had. Sort of in the whoops, look what I forgot, there's a rocket that goes here and has a nozzle hanging off the back. I'm going to have to come up with something for that. But in the meantime, things are progressing pretty well. These are 2-liter bottles, or actually 1-liter bottles. This is a barbecue grill hose, and it's an applesauce cup, and it's just sort of fixed on there by putting a hole through it and fastening it on with a cap. Well, today is one of those days I actually feel like this could happen. I've made these covers to go over that other sort of soft foam stuff that I didn't like. And sadly, the missiles will not be firing this year just because of time restrictions. But these are the pieces that fit as end plates to simulate missile coverings. And you can see there are 2 of them, and that's worked out well. Now these are that detail I was showing earlier that go on the chest plate. And this is just a piece of that black hose harness that you can buy at any auto parts store. And these, holding them in, are floral pins at the stress points. There's one here, and one here. Now before I can paint this or primer it or anything, I have to cover up a lot of these holes, or not holes, but screw heads, or make them look a lot less obvious. But things are rapidly approaching the primer stage with this upper body. In fact, I would probably say they have hit that stage. Okay, here's another shot of the arm, and here's this other piece that goes on there. This tucks up here so that when you're in normal position, this is what it looks like. Also, there's this little piece. I actually haven't included an inside. There we go. Let me get a better shot of this. I have included an inside piece there. It would go wrap around. This is just easier for getting in and out of the suit, and sometimes you have to make these compromises. For the most part, you won't see that. Nobody will notice it. This is a detail I kind of improvised on. I'm kind of cutting a few corners because of time constraints. Okay, 24 hours later, I have a testament to the value of experimentation and just trying something. Now, I gave up on the resin claws, and I was going to make them out of Sculpey like I did the teeth, because the first one smelled my house up so badly and was so messy and nasty. And yet, I just simply took it outside, added a few extra drops of hardener to make the resin harden up quicker, and I have 4 identical hard claws. That's the best background for this. Here, this is good. See a finger hole there? And they're perfect copies of one another. One of the problems that you run into when you're doing one-off things like this, not from the same mold, is that they're all going to be a little bit different. So when you put them all together, they're going to be slightly different sizes and shapes, and you may notice it. Now, that's a pretty big detail. The teeth here are fairly small, and if you really look close you can see the difference, but I think there was minimal enough sculpture involved in those, and there was actually so little to do on them that I was able to come out with something that was pretty uniform looking. But otherwise, you do end up with a problem when you're trying to duplicate many things that are supposed to look exactly alike. So I'm glad I did it, and sometimes it's just a matter of taking it outside where the smell doesn't bother you so much. Okay, I've had to resuspend him so I can check things like the arms. Now these are the roughly cut arms. They're lacking a lot of detail right now, and there's the other one over there, and this is going to be the drill that goes on the end. So a lot of these things have to be custom fit, and again, this involved me climbing back inside the suit and checking for measurements so I can make the cuts for where the elbow was. You can see the mark there, and doing the hinge. Now these hinges are not as elegant as I would have liked. I had a whole different thing imagined where I would have one cup fitting within another cup, and it formed kind of a rotating bearing there. I thought that would be kind of good, but unfortunately I haven't had time for that. So we have resorted to, duct tape. And here's a mock-up of the logo that's going to go on the shoulder right here. This is a tribute to the old Mechagodzilla logo. The same thing can be said for the lower torso, which I've done a fair amount of shaping up on. Rather than cover these, I've sanded these down to a nicer shape on the thigh, and done the same with the other side. Also, I'll have to clean that up. I've also finished off the back of these with this little panel. It'll have some little details on it, and then sort of rounds things off a little, finishes things off a little bit more nicely. I did have one issue down here where I had some, where is it? This is tough to see through a viewfinder. Anyway, one of these little conical pieces sort of broke off. I think it is, actually it's right there. And I was using double-sided tape. I'm going to have to fix that and check the others to make sure none of them are looking like they're going to do that. In the meantime, there's a covering on here, and these tubes will eventually plug in. But what I'm going to have to do is take them all out. I just needed to make sure it was long enough. Take them out of all the little conical pieces, the guides, if you will, and then spray it, and then put it all back through again. And then after that, I will take these parts and fasten them to the underside of the tail. But I have to be able to mask the black fabric that's here so it doesn't get silver paint on it. So it's really complex, and a lot of these painting operations are multiple steps. But as you can see, it is really starting to come along here, and as I can see, it's getting close to being finished with primary construction, and that will be a big relief for me. Well, here we are. It's the day I've been waiting for. Primary construction is finished, and although everything that I want is not done in terms of features, it is largely ready to go, and I'm going to paint it after priming it and see what I got, see how it looks, see how I like it. I may not add any more this year. I probably won't, actually. But what I am going to do is treat this like a work in progress. I'm sure for the next year or two I'll probably add the things that I really want to add, like the opening chest plate with the maser cannons in it. I got some ideas for a light display that I can mount in there, and have the rockets really firing, and I may hook up the speakers so that he can still play the sound. That'll be one added feature, but I'm kind of limited. Time has become a real problem here, and now with this being the Friday night a week before G-Fest, I have to get this primed and painted so that it can be ready to take to G-Fest. And I'm doing this amidst a move to Wisconsin, so this is not going to return to Toledo. It's going to go straight to Wisconsin to a storage unit and await my arrival there. And it'll be in my home when I get there, and somewhere in the basement if I have a place to put this. I really kind of
strange thought occurred to me while I was doing this. Where am I going to put the 74? And I thought to myself, you know what? I wonder if anyone would like to buy the 74. So we'll see. Maybe I'll offer it for sale at G-Fest for some amount of money that I have no idea, because it really means a lot to me. But anyway, this is it. The primary construction's finished. I've left out a lot of details with some of this stuff because the construction techniques are really modifications on stuff I've done before. However, this, which I'll try to demonstrate, does have a mechanism inside by which it can turn, but it doesn't turn very well because it's not centered properly right now, and I'm not going to worry about that. So like I said, some things I've had to kind of let fall by the wayside. I also worked out a kind of a hinge joint. There's these auto trim fasteners which basically mount in over here to little plates I mounted here. So when all the painting and priming, so I'm going to drill a hole, and that will hold it fast here, and this is just liquid nailed to here, and it's not going anywhere. But the problem I had was that this foam was too soft and they just pop right out, and that's no good. So basically this will give it a nice point to anchor, and that's just like 1/30 or 2/32, 1/16, something like that. It's pretty thick polystyrene sheet, and you can see it there, and it's liquid nailed in place. So that being done, I'm going to resist the temptation to put it all together and stand there and say, oh my God, look at this thing. I tried to put it together in the basement for one time just to look at it when it's all together and unpainted, and it was too tall. I actually couldn't fit it in the basement. The issue that you run into is the super weapon doesn't allow you to get the height you need over the torso to drop the little peg back here into place, and it starts hitting on the rafters, and then when you hit it on the rafters you end up with damage to all these sorts of things, and I didn't want that because they're just a pain in the rear. So I thought it would be best to just leave it, do the final assembly out here when it's all done, and I'll get a good shot of it. So on to the priming, which I'm not going to show the priming. I'm just going to go straight to the finished product because I don't think that's really going to be much of a value added feature. So we'll see it when it's done. Okay, I lied. Here's a gratuitous shot of the primered piece, and looks a lot different now without the blue and the pink. I had to mask off all this x-ray film on the tail because that really is not necessary to prime, and we're trying to conserve some of our materials. So here we are. We have some problems with this particular paint, with some areas where it sort of runs. You can see here, and no, that's not a run, but you can see what it kind of does with the underlying ink. It dissolves the ink that's on the foam that you use to draw, and it sort of allows that to rise to the surface. Now, I've tested this before. It's not a problem when you do the final coat. Final coat doesn't lift it up, and it covers it over and hides it pretty well, so that's not really a problem. Over here we have the head, the neck minus the super weapon, and again we have the ink lifting up right there. You can see it pretty pronounced. But again, not always a problem in the final analysis. You just have to kind of give it time. And that may actually add some character to it with some shading, etc. The hardest part to paint obviously was the fins, because there's so many surfaces that have to be done, especially on the tail. And it's nighttime, so light isn't perfect. And I'll probably have to do a second coat in the morning and then start with the primary under the accent coat, the black, in the afternoon or evening, so that I can spray the final silver day after tomorrow, or very, very late tomorrow. So, but you have to give this stuff time to dry. But it's just so different seeing this all in a monochrome, and I don't know, I'm pretty happy.
Okay, the primer coat is dried, and I've added some accent, sort of a recessed paint scheme here. This will allow the colors to sort of pop when I put the actual final silver coat on. And this involves painting all the areas that you're going to want to sort of recede a darker color. And this can be black, or it can be very dark gray in this case. It just really depends. I usually paint the things that are going to be on the underside the darker color, and that way that will hide. But since this is already gray and the highlights are going to be silver, I don't have to paint everything. So this actually has a black undercoat or undertone, whereas there's no undertone up here at all, and that'll just remain gray, but it'll be less glossy than the silver. So it's a relative kind of thing. And you can see you go through and do all the underside surfaces of things all throughout the piece. It's most pronounced here on the undersides of this, here, and when you get down here and here. It adds also much more of a three-dimensional effect to things and really brings out the subtle curves. And you can see that things don't look nearly as flat as they used to. And here to bring out the panel lines that you want, and especially even here to make the face sort of pop in a more dramatic way. And here it is. It's hard to get it all in even one frame. And I'm running out of tape. This is a lot of pain and a lot of work. And there it is. So, I'm looking very much forward to G-Fest in 1 week. Until then, I will see you there.
Well, everything's done now. I just wanted to wrap things up by saying here we are at G-Fest. I haven't brought the suit out yet, but the initial reactions have been really positive. I guess I need to be grateful to a lot of people, two of them being my wife, who pretty much put up with the whole thing for the better part of 2 years, although she didn't know about the first year. And my friend Linnell here, Linnell Bridges of Shuat Video, he was largely responsible for bringing me back into the hobby and letting me know what was out there and kind of just sort of keeping me in steady supply of G videos. So, and last, I want to thank Foam Factory, Hotwire Foam Factory in California. They replaced my unit of my Hotwire. They did it promptly. It helped me immensely, and they did it at a great price. They have great customer service, and for this project it was just crucial. So there are a lot of people other than me who had a role in this, and all I can say is thank you to all of them, and thank you to you for picking up this video. That's it.